Okay.
There we go.
So we set up this PTA meeting with our middle school principal, Phil Davis, and our high school principal, Steve Chinosi, because we heard from a lot of families that they wanted just a chance to have kind of a more low-key conversation about all the stuff that changes from middle school to high school. And we have the two people here who are best able to answer that. A bunch of people sent questions to the PTA in advance, and we've got all of those questions. So we are going to let Phil and Steve have a little chance to maybe take 5 minutes and share whatever pearls of wisdom they have about how they think we should consider this change. And then I'm going to go through some of the questions that people sent to the PTA. And then if anyone here wants to ask something else, it's a small group. Raise your hand, ask your question. I'm sure if you're thinking it, somebody else is. We got a lot of questions about homework, like how clubs work, like how phones work, like how class registration works is on everybody's mind right now, because that's very different from middle school. So with that said, I don't know if you would like to flip a coin, gentlemen, to decide who gets to go first.
It's your living room.
I can do it. I think it's a great idea to have this conversation. And it kind of goes in line with, I think, just a lot of the work we've been trying to do, but it's actually really hard to do because I've got this building and it's always buzzing, and Steve has that building and it's always buzzing, and it shouldn't be, but a lot of times transitions from one to the other becomes a little bit of an afterthought. You're like, well, they're going to run up there and they're going to do their thing, and we're going to keep humming here with a new group of 6th graders coming in and everybody transitioning up. But there has been some intentional design in trying to make the transitions occur more smoothly. And so some of that comes in this building from my history as being an 8th grade teacher here. And so having gone through the teacher side of things and watching kids transition and going, gosh, we totally missed the communication on that. Or when the parents come into the loop and, you know, what is the proper process, timing, procedure. I think a lot of things at the middle school, we try to hold hands of kids a lot and help them to start making decisions on their own. And I think, you know, the transition in a high school venue, you're more often looking at the kids need to be driving the car and the parents need to be given a voice from behind a little bit. And so then finding that happy medium between the two. So how do we inform parents what's going on? How do we start to put kids in the driver's seat of making those decisions, but not cutting parents out? So I think we've done some pretty good. The high school's done some great things with the step-up days, which the students went, I think, this year, the 13th and the 15th. Well, I think there was a snow day.
Yeah.
One of them ended up in a different date, but those were the original
Rescheduled.
dates. To go up, and even that day itself at the high school has been redesigned and tweaked, but a nice day for the kids to get a sense of what's going on. And as it works out, some kids have an amazing experience and see some really cool stuff, and then there's always that group of kids that happen to be, you know, walk into a classroom with it's a retake of a test or something like that, and they're like, I didn't really get to see anything, but that's just the way.
Welcome to high school.
Right, it's the way it goes in the school. You know, you gotta get what you get on those days because nobody's gonna be able to stop. And you guys do it for Greenland, for for Portsmouth Middle School
all
twice.
3 middles.
So
Yep.
it's a big undertaking. And then you've got the parent
Parent
open
night,
houses.
yeah.
And then here we've got the course selection where. Remind me, who is it working with?
Sarah Maloney this
Sarah
year,
Maloney.
and Jackie Chisholm, our coordinator for curriculum, came to speak with all the kids and the teachers and coordinate that work.
And I think the piece of it, and I believe there's a parent night ahead of the time this year for that
Yes.
too. And that was a big piece that had been missing in the past, where we kind of said, hey, the kids are going to get their course selection, and it's due back, say, on the 15th or whatever, and then there's going to be a parent meeting on the 17th. And it was like, wait a minute, don't the parents want to know ahead of time so they can help them guide through? And I think there's been better communication between the two schools this year on getting those notices out to parents, because sometimes that's been a miss in the past, where we say, oh, wait, there's an open house tonight? I didn't know that. And whatever. So
It's a lot going on. It's a busy community, whether you have kids in the K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12, it's there seems to be an endless list of events that parents are trying to keep up with. And one of the things that we went after right away was to think about communication not as another email, but communication is a form of a system, like systems design, and to think about communication as often creating new tools for parents. So our website, our program of study redesign was all about adding a current 8th grade page. Like that was a form of communication. We knew more emails weren't going to be the most effective, but if we curated all of those things that Phil listed off, which are endless, could we put them in one place? Could we really dial into a system where we could direct parents to a current 8th grade page on our program of studies, and then once July 1st hits, it's incoming 9th graders. So it's the same page, same location, it just rotates with the students as they transition. And I agree with everything that Phil was saying. It is a lot of work. I was actually fortunate. Before I came to Portsmouth, my job was pre-K-12, and one of my tasks was the transitions, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 12, 13. So I worked in Andover, Massachusetts, and my job was to work with principals, department heads, faculty, staff, students, the community, and we worked very deliberately on creating kind of a focus on those transitions because they are critical times for gains and losses, and on both ends, how do we start building those bridges in better ways? So I think we've done a great job. There's always more, but our teams are working together probably more than they have in years, and we're really proud of the curriculum work that's happening, that's calibrating our team so that when an 8th grade teacher makes a recommendation, it's with all the information they need from the high school. It's not happening in either side, or the high school saying, well, I wish those 8th grade teachers knew more. Well, that's on us, right? So we've done some really good work to make sure that we can close those gaps, and have been hosting those meetings. And so the transitions are critical.
And I think that with that piece, the next step is starting to take place that it will affect future years as well in looking at, now we're taking a deeper dive into English curriculum,
Yes.
social studies curriculum stuff. So you say, well, gosh, I wish they wouldn't teach so much of this in 8th grade because now that affects my 10th grade class. Or wait a minute, who's teaching the Holocaust? Nobody's taking a deep dive here. We've got our kind of vetted curriculum, 6, 8 that we do in each content area, and they at 9, 12, and so we're trying to bridge those and make sure that the big picture is working.
Yeah. And there's when you do overlap, so when courses or contents or skills are doubled, it's also about the nuance and the next level of sophistication. Sure. So when you tackle American history or you tackle mathematics, there's always that next bit, and that's that partnership that really helps kind of add the nuance in the curriculum work, and it's exciting.
And I will say the other wrinkle in this that's always a wrinkle in Portsmouth is doesn't necessarily affect you folks so much, but the SAU 50
Yes.
Is a whole nother district, if you will, that feeds in as well. And so I do summer meetings with the principals of Greenland and Rye, trying to make sure that our program of studies matches well with their program of studies, and at least we're hitting similar competencies, not always at the exact same time, but so that the 9th graders, because we used to hear, and I think on both sides, oh, well, the math students coming from Greenland are really good at this, the Portsmouth kids are really good at that, and so trying to even that out so that everybody has a very similar education coming into.
Yeah, as a regional high school, one of our number one jobs is to create a really equitable starting line, and knowing that you have 3 years to kind of advance and find your path and your niche, and that's the key part of managing a regional high school, not only all of the variables, but knowing that however kids get to us. Now, we're fortunate because our regionalness is relatively small, right? 2 other middles besides PMS, and they're relatively small middles. Working in Newton or Andover, where we're talking about 4 middle schools, pretty dynamic. Newton, 27 schools in one town. So that's something that's really important, but knowing that we can dial into that 9th grade transition to say, how we serve our kids and get everyone to a really great space, knowing that there's endless opportunity, is just one of our big goals, and I think we're leaning into it well.
We got a bunch of questions that sort of are about kind of curriculum and classes.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of questions that are more general, like how do I get my kid ready? And then we got some stuff sort of around phones and clubs and different things. So I might, is that not recording?
Nope, I just
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
We lost our
I
monitor.
didn't know what would happen if
You
I
don't
went to
want to
sleep.
be staring at yourself the whole time. But one question that a few people asked me in a variety of ways was just, what do I do now? Or what do I do if I have a 7th grader or a 6th grader to try to get my kid ready? You know, because there's some leap between, you know, elementary school where you do all the things for them, and by the time we graduate them, we hope they're doing all the things for themselves. But this is kind of an in-between period here.
You know, it's funny. It's a great question and a real one. You know, we're both parents too. I have a sophomore in high school. My older boys went through already, but
Feel free to put your parent hat on.
yeah, you know,
Yeah,
and so yeah, we feel it in that sense as well. And what I've seen in the last 3 years, it's actually not. There's some of it is academic or executive functioning. You know, just organizing and making sure you know where your notebooks are, and that's stuff the team here works on too. And those are fixable. Those are usually, you know, things we can lean in on. I think one of the things that we often spend a lot of time on is that kind of social transition, because the middle school team model is brilliant and amazing, and it serves kids in such a radical way. Really thinking about when you're not in the safety of a team, like what happens. And what we've tried to do is at least mimic some of the smaller learning environments. And our clubs are a testament to that, where kids really find a place to land, they find a place to connect with other like-minded kids. And so it's an interesting space, but that seems to be our probably more of a challenge for us, is to really just prepare kids for that. Some of the autonomy, like Phil talked about, you're kind of expected to. But now that we've emphasized a lot more on the transition year, we are reimagining freshman advisory. So that's a big push for us. So that's kind of a homeroom, 30 minutes every Monday, 35 minutes every Monday. That's a team that the students will be with for 4 years. Same teacher, same crew of kids. We have a curriculum that's basically comes from Stanford, the Wayfinder curriculum, and similar to Character Strong. Yeah, so we matched a lot of things to make sure they were appropriately matched. And that's a space where kids have, if anything is most like the team model, that's the advisory, where they're in with the same team, and there's a curriculum that kind of brings, they know what the expectations are. And we're looking at our whole 9th grade options for kids, both required and are really being dialed into that space of saying, okay, when you get to high school, there's going to be a lot. Portsmouth High is a big, productive high school. I think we have 70 clubs, and they're all stacked with kids, from robotics to art to debate and Model UN and global and sports and athletics, and it's just unbelievable. Social justice clubs, the eco club, the garden, the apiary. We have bees now. Like, kids are involved in everything, and that is where I think we've seen the most kind of supports, where kids are finding that small environment.
Yeah, so I think that's where I'd start. I mean, we actually are now tracking at the middle school in our homerooms who's involved with what.
Yeah.
And if not anything, what do you want to be involved in? Yeah. Trying to get to the highest percentage of kids being involved. And if somebody's taking piano lessons or a part of an outside group in the community, we're counting that as they're involved in doing something. I think it's so important. And so I think a huge thing is to look at that list of clubs and activities at the high school and start to have those conversations with kids. What are you going to do how are you going to be connected at this in this larger school? What this sounds cool or that sounds cool. And then going to the parent hat, with my own kids, my daughter's a freshman right now, in another community, but it's almost like wrapping around, like talking to some of the other parents, some of her friends, like, hey, she's thinking about doing this. What do you think? Do you think maybe you'll do that with it? Because my daughter is a social 9th grade girl who would love to know that I'm talking about her being recorded right now. But, there's some things that she wants to do, but she's not going to do them unless a friend does. Yeah. There's still that mentality. And I think by the time you're a little bit older in high school, you're a little more independent. Like, no, this is my thing. I'm going to do it. Maybe a friend comes with me, maybe not. But I think in that 9th grade year, if a friend's doing it, that's really, really, really important.
That's a great idea, and I love the concept, because I think what we've seen too is one of the interesting parts of that transition and kind of preparing is there's a lot of nervousness of the other schools, right? Like there's going to be other like 9th graders from other places. I could tell you by October 3rd, you couldn't tell in the lunchroom, which the noise is unbelievable because it's just kids talking and connecting, and all the whatever divisions they thought existed go away. And one thing that's really powerful, I think probably I'm sure at PMS as well, there is no stigma in any club. I mean, kids are geeking out over, you name it. They're in it and they're celebrated for it. And it's just really fun. It's a beautiful thing to watch. The kids find and even if it was something that my friend didn't really like, but I went for it, and then they found, a really great place to connect.
People.
Yeah, like-minded people. And so a lot of it's that kind of, I love the club idea. That's kind of brilliant that we could, share that. And we've talked about having our kids come in, obviously, our PMS, because we have student mentors. So in the 9th grade orientation in August, a small group of 9th graders, incoming 9th graders, will be assigned 2 upperclassmen who have been trained as mentors, and they'll be with those kids for 4 years. They'll be part of their advisory. They'll show up maybe twice a month in the advisory. So that right away changes how we can have kids come in and start sharing the clubs they're in and the projects they do. And
Well, that's really cool, and I think this fits in with another question where you might have sort of the opposite answer, but maybe not. A lot of parents wondered about how to guide kids as they're choosing classes. They get their teacher recommendations based on, how you're all looking at the curriculum. And then, some kids will say, well, I'm just going to do what my friend over here is doing, which might not be the academic choice. But how do you guys navigate that?
Yeah, well, so much
For
of what
parents, it's like we have this big green sheet and this green pen, and maybe
all
I think
these
the only one who's
things.
freaked out.
But so many of the classes in 9th grade are set.
yeah,
really.
that's the beauty of
There's
9th
not
grade.
a whole lot of
There's actually only a few electives 9th grade.
Right.
So it's actually kind of a great opportunity, too. We've actually increased the number of quarter-long electives in 9th grade to fit in some of those weirder spaces so kids can try it out in a 9-week course. It's not a big investment. So I think there's some great opportunities, but it is a benefit of having the 9th grade kind of set with some small handful of electives. We actually redesigned some of the prerequisites in a good way. So there was a Foundations of Arts course that kept kids out of some of the different, I don't want to say upper level, just different art classes, mediums and such. And the art department on their own said they wanted kids to enter any way they could, in any level, in any place. That's going to open up a whole bank of opportunities for kiddos.
But I think I would start with a conversation with your kid on those elective things. And what are you interested in? And like actually sit down and go through those elective courses and start to, who they are and what their interests are. And it probably does set apart from their friends a little bit,
It starts to
drive them into those things, woodworking or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's I think it's a really interesting, and what happens rapidly is whether kids find a track they can follow through, whether it's CTE, the arts, visual arts, performing arts, our science electives, natural disasters. So they end up finding really cool paths that they can dabble in. And even by senior year, the opportunities are really wide. I mean, so junior, senior year, kids can almost do it all. There are very few constraints once they get to that space. So we're excited for that.
That's good advice. We got a lot of questions about homework and how much is there, how is grading different, what happens when I forget it and it's late, and that changes as you go through middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And then it changes a lot more in 9th grade.
Yeah.
So can you talk about all about that?
I think that one's you.
Right now, say hypothetically, if we're still seeing a missing every also often a lot in Infinite Campus for our kids in middle school. What should we be doing right now to get them a little more ready?
Yeah, so in 8th grade, the teams are tighten up a little bit on that, the leash of the length of time that you can have missing assignments, and you can't wait till the very last minute in the term to turn it all in. And that's a progression. You don't want to just turn kids away and say, sorry, you failed, and you're not yet met, although that is appropriate in some instances if they've been given all the opportunities and you've invited them to stay after and you've tried and you've done everything. Sometimes that sting is what somebody needs, even in 6th grade. But I know Steve's first year, I had the question for him, and I said, hey, we're trying to look at our retake policy for our summatives here at the middle school. What is the policy at Portsmouth High School? And he laughed because coming from somewhere else,
there is now.
There wasn't at that time, and he's like, this is one of it's projects.
Thank
this
you
is something that
for revealing the invisible.
But that was before you.
Yes, before me. Yeah, it's been interesting because I think similar to PMS in most schools, I mean, there is a constant iteration. Even when you get it right, there's something more to learn. Things change, and that's an appropriate part of our industry, and we've both been in almost 100 years now or something together. I think when I think about that level of nuance and detail, there was not a consistent policy in place. So at the beginning of year 2 for me, which was a year ago, we decided to turn our summer workshop for the faculty into that, and they were tasked with coming up with a consensus on the best way to support kiddos, and it mimics the middle school model really well. There's a timeline, there's clarity. When the M is up there, it's not an automatic 0, and it gives teachers and kids an opportunity to have a conversation. But what we learned was the difference between the formative and the summatives. Late work is absolutely truncated. The process is truncated by the summative, right? You can't turn it in after the summative. So that guides our timeline very specifically. So if you're doing the work and the formative work and you miss 3 things that you want to catch up, but you just took the summative, you've already done what you've done. That's over. But similarly, what we're trying to get to is away from this one and done, sorry kid, you should have been on time. Our ultimate goal is we're part of the process, middle school, K-5. We're part of the process to help kids prepare for. So sometimes the sting hurts, and it's real and it's appropriate, the fail, the D, the whatever, the not so good grade, but that's part of the process, and it shouldn't be punitive in a bigger way, meaning, okay, the cumulative grading, the averaging, one of the things we're looking at, which was a problem for this scenario, was Algebra 1, and I'm sure we're going to get to mathematics, which we
did get math questions.
Oh, no doubt. We were working really hard on math. So we have a full semester Algebra 1, but it's delivered in 2 quarters. So students will have 2 different teachers over the semester-long Algebra 1. Okay, this is kind of unique. This is my 5th high school running schools, and so I thought, okay, so we're learning a lot about that, what that's doing to kids' preparedness, right? So these are 14-year-old kids coming from the structure of a team. Is that the best way to kind of support kids in their growth? I don't have a definitive answer either way, but it's something we need to look at, because that's where we go, okay, are we seeing a consistency across the delivery of instruction? Because once there's too many gaps and kids are like, this wasn't like quarter 1, the kids don't need to figure that out at 14 years old. That I don't think that's a responsible management system for kids. We can do better than having them scramble through multiple iterations of a class and being moved around. So I'm curious about that as well. Our move to IM mathematics, which was big and a 2-year project, has kind of eliminated the variabilities. So a consistent, curated, calibrated curriculum And anecdotally, what we have from our staff is that the transition between Part 1 and Part 2 of Algebra 1 is the smoothest it's ever been, because they're now operating on the same playbook. There aren't 2 or 3 playbooks of Algebra 1, there's one. And that's helped the kids transition from one teacher to another. And these are the things we're looking at to kind of help that work. Should I keep going on math? Because I got a whole lot.
More math questions, but I feel like that's a whole other thing.
Whole other meeting?
So
Yes.
I want to go through the list of
Sure.
stuff people ask, and we can always come back to math.
We can
'cause
always
I bet
come
we
back
could
to
have math
Do we
questions
want
all
to?
night.
Do we want to ask if there's? Just
Yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about
there's a
time,
lot of people-
Some people may not be able to stay for the whole meeting if they have a question that
Oh, totally.
someone
Right, yeah.
that is here.
We have a bunch of questions that people emailed in, but if anyone does have, I mean, I think we're going to try to run till about 8, maybe a little after.
Mm-hmm.
But if anyone did not send in a question that wants to ask one, yeah, we can totally open it up.
Oh, it's phoning in.
So phoning it in, yes.
I just thought I'd give
My
the people that
friend.
showed up the opportunity to.
Yeah, anything really, wide open.
Well, I know we got a couple about cell phones if nobody's raising their hand right away.
Yay!
Almost as much as math. There's a lot of
I
those.
love it, I love it.
But I mean, from a practical standpoint as a parent, like we do different things to kind of guide our kids in terms of what's allowed in the middle school and what's allowed at the high school.
Yeah.
So how do we get them, if we have sort of some time between now and the start of 9th grade, ready for that change?
Our simple
It's
mantra
different.
is off and away until I say. And it's now codified in our work. It's in every classroom. Teachers are responsible to manage that. And the clarity that we developed, again, this was another issue that was kind of all over the place. It was that simple. We have classrooms where the camera and the phone are part of the learning. They're part of the study. They're part of the tools. And others where they're never going to be necessary at all. Some teachers put them away in the pockets on the door. Some have a bucket. Some, they have a working relationship with the kids that they're never come out of their backpacks. And we are way ahead this year. It's the first year we put into place the off and away until I say. And any of the SAS talk, because that's what it really came down to. And I want to be really clear. So a couple things, just so you know, this is where me as father and classroom teacher. I taught 25 years in a classroom, before phones, before Wi-Fi, before cell phone, like all of it through COVID. I had a full load of engineering in Andover High through COVID. I really believe that when we get to distractions, students have always been distracted, always. There has never been a time in a class where a kid could not find a way to be distracted from the lesson. Our job as educators has always been to be more creative than whatever enemy was on the table. Phone, notes, just checking out. So what we talk about as a faculty is really thinking deeply about the minute this phone thing becomes, and I'm just looking at the basketball scores, but this shouldn't be the beginning or the end of a conversation with a student. Meaning there's something bigger. This is not it. The kid not connected, not engaged, right? You talked about engagement. How do we track that? These are the things that we're looking at. It's really easy to target this. Eliminating the phone will not guarantee engagement. Will it improve it? Sure, of course. We still have issues of working on engagement. So our off and away policy really gets down to the place where you say, if a teacher and a student and a parent have that conversation and there's a disobedience, disrespect, insubordination, these are things that it wouldn't matter what the mechanism was, a teacher kind of owning their space in their classroom respectfully, and a teacher or a student respectfully following the directives of a classroom teacher, that's foundational. That's foundational. And I'm not interested as a professional educator in blaming any one specific thing or even targeting one thing. I think our job is to constantly be responsive to the kids' needs, our students' needs, and also provide an experience in learning that challenges whatever distractions are the flavor of the day. So it's working for us. It's working for us. We've cut down our discipline referrals for phones or any tech use inappropriate tech use, almost nil. It's rare a kid comes down to the office now because of a phone thing. Because our policy, so what we did was a rationale, and you can find this in our handbook and it's online, a rationale, expectations. These have never been written down at Portsmouth High School. A clear rationale why we want engaged learners. Clear expectations, why off and away until I say, teacher, is the rule of the day. And then the results. What happens when you don't meet these expectations, and how do we start you? And there's a graduated engagement. The last line in the whole procedure for us is any disrespect will elevate the response immediately, meaning I'm pretty old school. I'm a very progressive educator, but when it comes to respect in a classroom, it's a pretty old school style for me. So we can disagree, but right now I need to know you're going to follow the reasonable directives of an adult in this building, because we have 1,300 people to manage, and that's a big task. So that's where we are. And I'm actually proud of the team. I'm proud of the faculty. I'm proud of the kids. I think everything they learn here at the middle school helps them and prepares them for that level of a little more responsibility and some responsibility to their learning community, to their classroom community. And they're responding positively. Yeah.
We had several phone questions, so I don't know if anyone here had more phone questions before we go to something else.
Well, I don't have really more, I was one who submitted a phone question. It's a big, I don't know, it is a big concern. Just, on paper, what you say to me sounds great.
Yeah.
I do have 4 nieces and nephews at the high school and many, many babysitters, and I feel like what they say doesn't really match up with. Yeah,
they're saying it's inconsistent.
Well, they say that for this year, so every classroom is a different expectation.
Yeah.
And they say in the beginning of the year, teachers were on it, and that has all kind of become lost at this point.
So not lost, but definitely muscle memory is the work of change, right? So absolutely. We went in, good, clear language, guidance for teachers. The teachers were making posters for themselves. And then some old habits came in. So we hear from the kids too. I talk to the kids every day about what they experience across the board. So this is the work. The work is, it wasn't going to be fixed overnight. But the more we lean in and the more we share and the more we listen to kids and staff, the closer we get to kind of some consistency. But it's true. Yeah.
Do you think the off and away until I say is as far as you'll ever go with phone restriction, or do you ever think about doing something?
So I did a lot of research, and again, I'm a big believer. I'll just be really honest. I'm a big believer, having taught through all the tech cycles and with and without. I don't know if that would prepare the kids any better for the world they have to face, which is unlike anything we dealt with as kids. When I did the research, the blow up in Lowell, if you read the Boston Globe stories, where the board and the community revolted on a ban. And the original definition of a ban of cell phones in schools was not allowed in the building. You cannot walk in with the phone. That was utter chaos. So the Boston Globe story and all the research around, and I'm still connected to the Boston schools, it was remarkable. What the board had to do was their ban is now defined as off and away. If you listened or read our governor's language of the emerging discussions on phones in New Hampshire as well, you'll see the same thing. Ban is defined as off and away. So I think people need to be really clear on and read the rest of the story, because it's easy to think about a ban. I can tell you point blank, in a building our size, we work really hard to manage other things that are truly banned for minors, and we work endlessly. I don't think we have the bandwidth, to be really honest, to have another thing we can't manage. We work really hard to manage banning vapes and banning all the other things. And let me just say too, since the invention of a bathroom, it came with kids smoking in it. So I just want to be really honest. Do we fight it every day? Yes. Do we walk into bathrooms? Do I walk past and say, "Hey, everybody, the principal's here"? we work really hard to make sure those places are safe for kids. But it's real, and it's the world we live in, and it's not new just because it went to some electronic version of a cigarette. And we taught back in the day, well, at least at the high school, one of my duties was cleaning up when kids were allowed to smoke in high school. That's how long I've been teaching. That was an accepted thing. So these are things that are real, and I don't know if I would push anything other than healthy management, respected give and take. Like, I don't believe as an educator, I'll say it really honestly, I don't believe that censorship in some form like that. Do I believe as a parent, did I keep my child's phone? Yes. Did I turn it off? It cost $10 on AT&T to keep the number but kill the service. I spent a year, instead of paying $27, I spent $10 so that my son would not have his phone. That's me as a parent saying, no. I'm in control. Schools can do what they want. What happens in our family, in our house, and if I hear from a teacher that you're disrespectful of the environment of that classroom, and this was connected, there would be no phone. But that's me as a parent.
Yeah, and I'll say, the policy here at the middle school, we kind of had it in place, and it became really slippery around COVID, primarily because we had kids eating in cubbies and assigned spots, and they were like, can I just FaceTime my friend at the other side of it?
Yeah.
And, we've got a soft heart, and so, yes, you can can do that.
Please connect with a human,
So
please.
phones crept in a little bit, and then those habits of teachers is really what I'm getting at, is difficult. So there were certain teachers that would say, I'm just going to let them listen to music while or, during success block at the end of the day, I'm letting them use their phone. And we had to again and again and again and again say, no, phones aren't allowed. Like, this is the rule at the school. I need everybody to enforce it. And I think we're finally to a point where it's the same rules. But if I don't, and Tim doesn't keep hammering it and reminding people, and we forget. I forget sometimes. You get new people and they don't have all the same reminders, and they start to go to the habits of the school they taught him before. So we need to keep it going with the staff so that the expectations are there. So I would, in the first year, I would not be surprised that it's not.
Yeah, we haven't found
fully
that.
there.
Yeah, we're in it. We're in it. We're working hard. We're having honest conversations. But we have some data that, like I said, the discipline referrals for phone issues are just not happening the same way. And it's actually what we've asked folks to do is to go to classrooms where there aren't cubbies, where there aren't buckets for phones. What is that teacher doing differently? Why is it not? Or why does the teacher have the look, right? Like, and sorry. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's happening instructionally? What's happening? And these are important things for us as a faculty to engage and talk about, and also listen to teachers who do feel the frustration, because it is real. And out of COVID, it was incessant. It was borderline dangerous, right? Having read Anxious Nation, I think there are a lot of variables that are stressing our kids out. I also know, this is one thing I was at, can I tell this story? I loved it. So I'm at some meeting. I don't even remember. Oh, it was like a Chamber of Commerce or something, right? Portsmouth, Greater Portsmouth. Loved it, great people. They said, tell us a secret at the high school. Like, what's going on? And Zach McLaughlin, our superintendent, just gives me this kind of death stare, like, what's he going to say? What's he going to say? I said, I got one. And I already said it, so I gave it away. But the noise of kids talking is almost unbearable in our lunchroom. So every adult who thinks kids are just head down, sucked into a screen, I am telling you, that is not true. Our kids are still choosing human engagement over screen time every day in our building. That you have to trust. And I will invite you, come to lunch. And you will leave in 3 minutes because you can't hear yourself think. That's the beauty of kids gathering. And the phones might be out, that's okay. But they are engaged in what kids have always done, which is just connect and laugh and try to use the garbage cans as hoops and throw garbage all over But yeah, that's real. I mean, I think adults who don't work with kids have a sense of the phones and the culture, and I just don't think that's real. I don't think it's as real as, even my wife will be like, oh, the screens. I'm like, it's just not what you think it is. And I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm not saying it's not an issue that we have to continually address. It's just kids still choose to play ball. They still choose to be in the band. They still choose to go to the art studio and paint. All those things are happening. All those things are happening. So
let's see, I'm looking at the stuff that people emailed in. We had some questions about math, we had some questions about AP classes, and we had some questions about the PSAT. Does anybody have any other questions you want to put out there before I launch into those? I don't want to leave out anything
on
else.
the heels of your lunch, does the whole school eat lunch at the same time? Like
we
all
do.
1,300 students or whatever? And can they mix with age group? Like, can your freshman go sit with
It
the
is
sophomore?
mixed.
Just mix it. Okay.
It is mixed and beautiful.
I mean, I think
And
that's
closed
great.
campus, right? Closed campus?
No, not for seniors and second semester juniors.
Okay.
Second semester juniors have a privilege if they're in good standing, grades and discipline. They are allowed to leave for lunch. Seniors have open campus privileges, again, second quarter. We let first quarter settle. So second quarter they can apply for open campus, and that's lunch off campus. And if they are, if they don't need to be scheduled up, they can leave for flex. So that a lot of them go to work or go to their practice, other things outside of school. But that is monitored and managed, so they also lose those privileges, and they're what we call scheduled up. So yeah, that's.
A lot of clubs and activities meet during lunch as well, so
Yeah.
it's not the
Yeah, it's
entire
not-
student
yeah, yeah.
population in that place. They're
Scattered
in the building.
all over the building, and we have 4 what used to be locker bays. So on the new building, the '90s building, there are 4 old locker bays that have been transformed into lounges. So those are open for lunch. Game clubs, D&D club plays there. So they have breakout spaces for classrooms and teachers too during class blocks.
Yeah, nobody uses a locker, right?
And we do not use lockers.
Kids don't want to use lockers.
It's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
They carry their winter coat.
They carry everything.
They don't wear coats.
I know.
Oh,
I-
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
betting.
yeah.
The
Besides
truth-
that, yes,
the
they
truth
don't
of
wear
it.
coats, and yeah. So, but the lunch is amazing. It really is something. We've also put some new restrictions in, if you call them that. My biggest move this year, we actually launched it this year, was clarity. Actually, when we talk about clarity for kids, we have to talk about clarity for adults too. And we did not have lunch duties outlined with specificity. So this year we introduced very specific lunch duties and tasks. If you're on lunch duty as a faculty member, you're not going to stand in the corner of the library and hang out with your colleague. It's nice to catch up with them. No, you need to move around. You need to check in with kids. You need to check the bathrooms. So we actually wrote up the actual requirements of lunch duty so that teachers had clarity too, because they weren't really sure. Oh, I'm stationed here, but what am I supposed to do? Well, you're supposed to monitor that bathroom, and the kids should not be eating in there because that's gross. It's so private. Yeah, no, but the club activity is huge. Our teachers open their classrooms, kids hang out with their teachers. That's one of the most beautiful things, is to see the kids that gather around their teacher at lunch. It's really cool. So, yeah, other ones?
All right, we'll bring it back to Matt, because we
Woo!
talked to you about that, and we're going to put you on the spot first
Right.
for
Yeah.
that one, because people have been curious about what is happening in terms of Algebra 1 at the middle school, and then how does that impact what happens in your building?
Sure. So if we go back years, we had advanced math, and we actually had advanced English as well. And kind of the longstanding Portsmouth policy of a parent can opt into, even against the recommendation of the previous year's teachers, can opt into advanced math or English. So at some point it became equal numbers of advanced and non-advanced, and what it became was the parents who knew to ask, and then the kids who didn't. So it became doers, and the parents who managed the kids and asked them to do their homework, and then the other sections that those kids were kind of on their own. And I was like, wow, this is terrible inequity, and it's certainly not advanced anymore. The teachers who were teaching those sections are going, I can't we're not really hitting further and above and beyond curriculum at this point. We're just, I've got a bunch of doers in the classroom. So we made an effort to scale back. We got rid of advanced English, which one of the areas that I taught was English at one point. It's a fairly easy content area to differentiate. So you can take like elements of a story, say, and I can have one group of readers that are, working on this same theme or unit at a higher level, and of reading, and then others who are maybe reading a novel set that's for younger readers or an easier to access content, but working on the same unit. So that was a no-brainer for me. We're going to get rid of honors English, and so that it's everyone's mixed. Math was a little more difficult. Did a lot of research on it, and really the research says that about 5% of students are achieving at a higher math level. Numbers as they are, we can't really take a section because of our teaming model and say, hey, we're going to take 5% and put them into an advanced section because the other sections are going to be huge numbers-wise. So we have about a quarter of our students in 8th grade now are either assigned or, a letter goes out to parents at the end of 7th grade, and you've probably all seen this letter, but for those that may be listening, to say, hey, you've been recommended for the Algebra 1 course. It is a high school level course, and we follow the same curriculum as Algebra 1 at the high school. And we've tweaked this, but now I think we can assuredly say we are doing the same curriculum as high school. You still can push into that class if you were not recommended. We have a bunch of data, and typically when a parent talks to me over the summer, it's what a lot of my summer is spent doing is talking about math placement. I will mask out the names and say, hey, here are the kids who were recommended, and here's their, we probably have 14 different scores. Here's their data, and you can't see any names, so I feel comfortable sharing that. And here's your child's data, and here's where they fit. Sometimes they're very close, and I would feel, yeah, if they want to go for it, absolutely, challenge in. If they're far away, I might not recommend that, but if the student is really saying, I'm motivated and I want to do this, I feel like now's the time. Middle school, go for it. If you're saying, oh, I want to try hard and I want to do it, sure. And we can make those adjustments. Really, we try to do it by October because that's when the curriculums really start to go far apart, and you'll miss content if you change out of that class after that. So we end up with a section on each team of Algebra 1. They do take the high school algebra midterm and the high school Algebra 1 final. And part of the reason we're doing that is so that we can make sure that we're on track with what the high school is doing and look at numbers. But also so that we can say to the student that, hey, you actually have earned high school math credit, or, hey, you know what? You gave it a shot, you went through the class, and we're going to recommend you take Algebra 1 again at the high school, which is just going to make that class that much easier for you, really. And now when you get that credit-bearing class in 9th grade, you'll hopefully ace it,
Crush it, yeah.
because it's going to be the same course that you've already taken, but you weren't quite there at 8th grade. So that's what our current model is, and I think we're better aligned. We had an issue a couple years ago where what we were doing and what the high school thought we were doing were not the exact same, just kind of different levels of the class. And some kids really struggled going into this year's 10th graders that took the class. Really struggled when they transitioned to Algebra 2.
And part of that was on us. We, I don't really know why, but they ended up in an honors Algebra 2. So that just shouldn't have been. It was like they were still 14-year-olds. They were still little kids. So there was a whole bunch of other things, despite doing well in 8th grade, that was not the appropriate placement. So that won't ever happen again. That was really just one cohort that we actually have now been monitoring and watching. So every move, that cohort of kids, which was an Algebra 1 PMS crew, we're on them for the next 3 years to make sure they're getting everything. And we created intervention plans and made sure that it wasn't on the burden of the child, but that my team could actually come around and say, no, it's not because they didn't know what to do. This was the wrong structure. So let's come in with interventions that meet them where they are and keep them on track for calc or wherever they want to go. And so, it's been a really solid 2-year teamwork. So all of Phil's team, my curriculum team, plus the math department, just had a great February meeting, mapped it out again, looked at every pathway from pre-algebra to pre-calc and everything in between. It is a thorough, there's no way to get to PHS, whether you enter in with pre-algebra and not have an opportunity at pre-calc. And calc, actually, you could hit calculus even in pre-algebra. So the one real breakthrough we did was we had a pre-algebra course that was locked in at a full year. That eliminated so much opportunity. And what it didn't do, and what we learned since the great calibration, was teachers knew kids, maybe they needed a semester of like get accumulated, to the high school, get in there, understand it. So we reduced pre-algebra to semesters. So now kids can come in, maybe I just need a semester refresh, ground myself at the high school, and then I'm off and running in Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Calc, and the track. So that was a huge breakthrough, and only was possible because of the teamwork between our departments, and that was wonderful to see.
Yeah, that department, the middle school, high school departments work very closely, and now are bringing in Greenland and Rye, who are
all three,
really anxious to get doing the same thing.
And our lift on illustrative mathematics was pretty significant. We were looking at part of that disconnect was I actually laid out 7 syllabi for my Algebra 1, and most of them were different. And I thought, we're going to get better. We're going to lean in. Our teachers are great. That wasn't the issue. It was just calibration. So illustrative math, I knew it from Mass. There was just as an aside, why I went with that program specifically. In Massachusetts, they have a faculty group that are statewide. And any curriculum, any program is given to this team. And the team's job is to shred it or check it out, test it, pull it apart. And I sat on it in different departments, but the mathematics, illustrative math, was the highest rating every time it went through the process. And as of this morning, the state of New Hampshire has named IM Algebra 2 as the investment from the Department of Education. So we were 2 years ahead of what they're recommending. But IM is if you haven't seen it, all you have to do is search. Everything is online. There are whole parent support systems already mapped out. It is definitely the most organized and calibrated curriculum I've ever seen. What we've done, just so you know, we're looking at data sets, obviously, student performance. We have our state level data sets. We had to look at some grade level data sets. We had to create new custom data sets as well. So real quick, 1 year, not longitudinal at all, but 1 year, we cut our second quarter, so first semester, quarter 1, quarter 2, Algebra 1 failing by 37%. And when we broke it down even further, our 9th graders alone, because that includes 10th graders doing retakes, 11th graders taking retakes, our 9th grade alone, we went from 7% failing, 7% in 23, the fall of 23. And then this most current fall, any guesses what we reduced the failing to? 7% of the 9th graders were failing Algebra 1 in first semester. Any number? Throw a number out there. 0.0041. The
Must
only
think to be that one kid.
But it's one of those things that once you put the framework in place, once you put the system in place, we now have metrics we can look at, we can talk, we can share, we can identify some of those kids and say, okay, what did we miss something? oh yeah, that's the team, the team recommended this or that. So we're really excited because it just gives us insight that before was not measurable. It was really kind of anecdotal. And we're in a place now because of the calibrated curriculum, the partnerships, I think the service to kids is just going to take off in a way that we have never really experienced. So I'm very excited and proud of the teams working together. Yeah, so math I'm very excited about, yeah. And it's a hard one. In high school, it's probably the number one challenge. I worked K-12 for years, and literacy, obviously, in the K-5 is the other one. So I felt like we took on the biggest hurdle, really dialed into some calibration, working with our partners, and the kids will benefit from it. And our teachers, too. They're trying very new methods. It's not just a new curriculum, it's a new instructional strategy. That's the big differentiator. It's not just Algebra 1's Algebra 1. It's actually how you
And
deliver.
it'll actually be incredibly similar to
Yes.
what they're getting at the middle school now.
Yes. More aligned.
We've been
yeah.
using Amplify for the last several years. Amplify is a modified IM.
Yeah.
Basically, they use more computer-based models and more assists to teach the same
Yeah.
theoretical way.
Yeah.
So
It's really, really good stuff.
With other math questions, I know a few people had math questions they emailed. Any others about math? So I think I'm looking at what people emailed in.
Sure.
The only other stuff that people asked about by email was what is happening with AP classes,
Woohoo!
which comes up every time
There-
there's a meeting with parents, and also what is happening with PSAT, and particularly in ninth grade.
Yep, we took
And
it out
that
of ninth grade.
also comes up a lot.
Yeah, we took it out of ninth grade this year because we had no mechanism to utilize the data. It was that simple. They take it in sophomore year. Doesn't mean we won't go back to it. It just means we had nothing.
What is PSA?
The pre-SAT.
Oh, PSA.
So SAT usually for us at the state level, it's our state assessment in math and English. That's what's approved by the state of New Hampshire.
and that's taken by everybody in 11th grade.
11th grade taken by all, or you can opt out. PSAT offered to sophomores as a, like, hey, see where you're at with these baseline things. It was also offered to the ninth grade. We weren't doing anything with the data set, didn't instruct us in any way at all. And there was actually, just to be really honest, because it's hard not to be, it was actually a logistic issue because splitting up the building and securing the building for test days that are different. Well, the seniors are out because they're not taking tests. The juniors have to be secured in a secure test facility. The sophomores are on a different day, and we have to isolate a whole 2 halls and 2 floors. And then we're going, oh wait, we got to do so let's just throw the freshmen in there too. That was some of the logic. So we just hit the pause button. We're going to go back to what data do we want, what's most helpful for us to help, because it's all spring testing. So at that point, you're going, all right, some of the class selections done. We were like, how is this helping the kiddo? So we'll get back to how and what we would want to help end of freshman, second semester freshman. What metric would we want to look at that's not grades and performance and discipline and attendance and all the other things so yeah, it's off the table for this year. We are replacing it with a ninth grade design day. So this will be based on the UN sustainability goals. So we're going to look at water and air and policy and politics and have kids engaged in some pretty big global issues, designing solutions together in teams with faculty. And so we're looking at an alternative day of engagement for the ninth graders that day.
So is the PSCT offered in the sophomore year?
Yep.
So just not freshman year?
Yeah, we just took it off the freshman plate for now until we find a better, more logical reason to use the data, or not. And we might say, no, let's pursue some other data set. Yeah.
Do all sophomores take PSAT?
Unless they opt out. Yep, unless they opt out from parents, and many do, and that's yeah.
Sorry, in the middle school, do you guys do the STAR assessment?
Yeah, so that I was going to kind of piggyback on that. That is the interesting thing about these mandated assessments. So we will take the SAS assessment
Yeah.
later the school year, making that manageable, usable data is difficult. For a teacher to go, oh, okay, what do I do with this? So we use the STAR assessment 3 times a year, and we look specifically at math and reading, and we use those for targeted supports for students. So if a student is flagged in kind of this zone of a score, then we'll have kind of the team look at that and say, sometimes it's, they didn't try. And it's as simple as that. They just didn't engage in the test. This is not this kid's ability at all. Other times it's like, yeah, you know what, we've been noticing and kind of questioning, and so then we'll put them in a supported class in reading or math, and kind of give them a 9-week shot in the arm during one of their UAs. So they may come out of an art class or something to take a math counts class, and they will take that with the teacher and see if we can't isolate the problem or the issue, or boost them up. Or sometimes that results in, if they've taken it twice, so they may do 18 weeks in that class, and if we're still not seeing progress, oftentimes it becomes a referral to special education. We're like, you know what, something else might be going on with this kid.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is, sometimes it's not.
Are those assessments like from around the country?
Yeah,
Just
STAR is a
just the
national.
Yeah,
school?
yeah.
STAR is national.
And does the high school have any?
We actually use the 8th grade stuff for that's our partnership on the data sets. So we actually use all that 8th grade data for our 9th grade, once they get to us, because that's
And
the
then are there
timing.
assessments like within high school?
Yeah, so we use STAR in mathematics as well.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but with the data sets most ripe for us because it's a spring test. So by the time we have the data to actually see kids in the fall with the data from the spring. So it's actually helpful for us. Yeah. AP. Okay, so a couple years ago, before I got to Portsmouth High, the building, the community, the school, were asking the question, is AP the most appropriate? And so at some point, lots of conversations. They were asking that question primarily because the success of our dual enrollment programming, our partnerships with UNH, Southern New Hampshire University, Great Bay Community, and I think the green light's still on.
The green light's still on.
Yes, I think we're
it's
good.
recorded.
That's okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, look at that. So it wasn't just a question of AP, it was a question of, wow, we're seeing this amazing growth in partnerships with universities and preparing our kids at that level. And this is it's actually a national state, it's called the 2 and 2 program. This is where the community colleges, the state universities, and they're getting directions from the state legislatures all around the country to support high school college partnerships. So that's been going around a very long time, not unique at all. In Portsmouth, though, they decided to really investigate. One of the first ones was our anatomy and phys with Southern New Hampshire University, and that was a huge success, still going strong. A very advanced course, anatomy and physiology, and then it just kept growing in all the departments. So when I came on board, or actually the year before I came, Portsmouth High put in the program of studies side by side. These are the courses, and with direction to the whole community. You pick dual enrollment physics, AP physics, dual enrollment world history, AP world history, all the courses. We will run, because we can't fiscally, responsibly run them all, right? So whatever gets the most votes, essentially, we'll run. We'll listen to you. And when I got that data, and I presented it to the school board my first year, it was 78 kids signed up for dual enrollment world history and 9 for AP world history. And in every department, the pattern was the same. So we listened to the community and we ran the courses that the families were picking. And so, AP, I was an AP teacher, I was an AP student, all those things. AP's amazing, and it presented a national consistent curriculum across the country for many years. So lots of good stuff. Also, lots of test prep. A little less mathematics, a little more test prep, right? In all honesty. It's good stuff. The curriculum is rigorous, but it's also that thing. COVID changed everything and just kick-started something that's been going on for a long, long time in terms of schools pulling away, colleges and high schools pulling away from the College Board as a mandate. That included SATs as well. So our success in dual enrollment, and I mean that not because we did it, I mean the kids are thriving. Like that's been the driver for us. I have asked my teams, counseling, department heads, to dig deep. I asked our number one advanced mathematics instructor, who was an AP guru. He gave dual enrollment a try, and his response was, I spend more time in mathematics now than I did teaching AP. I'm going to believe my team. I asked, we have about 90 partners, like college admissions reps that we partner with. They come to our open houses and our college admissions nights. We created 3 surveys. When we said, when all things are equal, what's the differentiator for kids to get into college? They said internships and capstone research. It's not AP scores. This was a new nugget we just found. This was a good one. So this senior class, I don't think any AP classes offered for the senior group. This is when we look at college admissions, right? So Northeastern, very, very important school in Boston, very great school for us. A lot of our families and kids apply to Northeastern. 115,000 applicants for Northeastern this year went up. Their acceptance rate went from 18% to about 3%. Okay, now here's the beauty. Here's the beauty. Ready? Should make you warm and fuzzy inside. Guess what our admissions rate to Northeastern is for Portsmouth High for kids with no APs?
Hopefully better than that.
It's better. It's way better. It's really better. It's like 37%. We've held. So, and that's that. It didn't go up. We've held. When everything else changed, our kids are still performing, and still we have prepared kids. We have a great brand. Schools know to trust Portsmouth schools, and we deliver. And those data sets that we're looking at is the only way to have the conversation, because nostalgia is hard for a lot of folks. Fear that my child won't be differentiated. And having taught AP for about 10 years, having taught capstones and ran internship programs, I can tell you that when there's 10,000 applicants for 1,000 seats at any college, I can absolutely guarantee a capstone research project is the differentiator. An internship at Portsmouth Hospital or wherever is the differentiator. And our college admissions rep survey has proven that time and time again. I hear repeatedly, and I don't mean to dismiss it, but everyone who goes on a college tour tells me what their college tour guide told them and how important APs were, and yet no one's ever really shown me any data. All of the independent schools left AP a long time ago. Scarsdale, New York, one of the best high schools in America. I think it's the best high school. Left AP. What's that?
None of the schools around Westchester did. It was just Scarsdale.
It's just, oh, you know the area. Yeah. So, and they've been doing that for like 15 years or more, and they're thriving. And so we still offer AP exams. So every kid has access to the AP exam. We coordinate it. We have a staff member who manages that for kiddos and families. So any family who wants to, we only had about a small handful that did it this year. And they're prepared and they're doing well. Our scores haven't changed either. They're taking advanced, rigorous courses with our faculty. The other thing to think about in AP and dual enrollment, this is all on our website, by the way. If you go to our program of studies and other information, honors at PHS, we did a side-by-side comparison. I taught AP for many years. You have to take a 2-week training course to teach AP courses. To teach dual enrollment, you have to have the same credentials as a college professor. Major difference. So when I taught at SNU for 10 years, I did that. I was able to do that because I have the credentials of a college faculty. You don't need the same content knowledge. So that means in dual enrollment, you have to have a graduate degree in the content. You have to have a graduate degree in the content. To teach AP, you can have a graduate degree, but it could be in education, just the general ed leadership thing. Very different. And I can tell you, the differentiator in a class is always the teacher. All these curricula are wonderful. our teachers make the difference. So my great teachers were great with AP curriculum, and they're great with the dual enrollment university curriculum. They're the ones we invest in, our faculty. They're the ones who deliver and close the gaps for kids and bring kids to the next level. It is not the College Board by itself. Any curriculum in the wrong hands is not going to save the day either. So we invest in our people first. That's the ultimate goal. And I asked them, I asked this year alone, I said, now's the time. Tell me you want back into AP, and we'll run back. No one's biting the offer.
And the dual enrollment credits, are those just with the local institutions that you partner with? Or is
No, so that's another great question.
internationally?
Also, in our side-by-side comparison, which I invite you to go look at on our website. So the dual enrollment credit, if earned, is a transcript you take wherever you want to go.
In Northeastern and all the other places surrounding.
Yes. Now, like any other transfer credit,
Yep.
they go through the same review process. So if you were leaving Harvard to go to MIT, they wouldn't accept all the credits potentially, right? It's like any other transfer. But you own the college transcript. That's not how it works with the College Board. There are no credits. Advanced placement was literally what that meant. It meant you were going to skip the Lit 101, English 101 in your freshman year and go to 201 or something. So yeah, that's how that worked. You might not even get the credit. Now in UNH, on our website, we also mapped out, there are many departments and schools all over that will not accept AP, especially the technical departments, engineering, nursing, pre-med, bio. They want the kids to get in with them and start. They're excited to see a kid with AP and dual enrollment. Doesn't mean they're going to accept the credit, though. Yeah.
But those are domestic certifications, like if a CAD can run and apply it in a national school, they wouldn't recognize that or transfer that.
What they recognize, no, the transfer they would, yeah, absolutely, yeah. My own kids did that. They went back and forth to Europe in schools, but some of their credits went and some didn't. But no, yeah, we have students showing up with their SNU transcript to McGill. We just had kids accepted into McGill in Montreal. So yeah, I think it happens. The transcript's a little easier, and AP is known too, but not nearly as like strong evidence as a college transcript that you own for life. Like you get those credits no matter what. Yeah, it's amazing experiment. Like I stepped in and I was like, wow, Portsmouth is doing this. Okay, let's see. Oh, I was a little nervous too, but I'm really proud of the faculty. They examine it, they pull it apart. All of our students have access to all the university libraries. All of our faculty have faculty partners with their university partner. They have access to the resources of all the colleges. It's changing their own professional development with that level of connection to SNU and Great Bay and UNH and U Lowell. And yeah, it's been really wonderful to see that happen. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I'm a seventh grader, but I don't know if you guys asked this, but what's the biggest obstacle you see in the ninth graders as they come in?
I think it's just scale. I was hinting at it before. It's a really big school for a lot of kids. That's really it. It's just, and there's a lot of freedom at Portsmouth High. It's really we expect a lot from the kids, and we trust them, and we do our best to set boundaries, but kids can run themselves right into some trouble, and that's okay too. That's part of the learning. But yeah, that's kind of it. Like I was saying earlier, by early October, they're Clippers. They're proud to be Clippers. They're excited about the clubs and the culture and their classes, and the teachers. Our campus is amazing, right? 90 acres in the woods and the waterfront. Teachers are out and about with kiddos, so it's a really dynamic place that for some, overwhelming. Lunch is a big one. We're trying to find some isolated spaces that kids can eat in quiet because that lunchroom is chaos. But yeah, that's really it. I think the volume of work, the responsibility, which I know the 8th grade teams are always coaching the kids, like, you're going to have to be on top of all of this. And that comes in time. And we've seen the growth, They're really different at this point in the year. They're like different kids. It's really cool to watch. Yeah. But social is like I said, no stigma. Kids are doing really geeky things, and it's awesome, and everyone celebrates. And I'm pushing all of my admin to teach a flex class. So I teach a music class on Fridays, and everyone's picking up different opportunities to connect with kids. And so it's been a really wonderful thing. But yeah, so I think it's just the scale. It's a big jump, but they get there pretty quick. Yeah.
This has been really awesome, both of you. Is
No,
there
thank
any
you.
last words of advice, like anything you wish we as parents would not do that makes it harder, or anything you wish?
Well, that
That's
question,
a whole- well, you know what I mean.
we're going
I
to take
always
about,
hear, like,
if everyone's
we're the
got
ones-
50 more minutes, let's lean it. No.
You don't have to tell us we're the ones that are texting our kids and messing up the cell phone policy.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, seriously, like anything, like your parents, your leading schools, anything you just really wish that we knew that we didn't ask. about.
Actually, for me, the number one is get your teachers on phones. Call your kids' teachers. Whenever I get a call or an email, my first response is, have you talked to the teacher? Just call them. Break the ice. I know it's weird. It's probably awkward, whatever. Reach out and demand, if you have to, that you talk. Email is not a form of communication. Email is a form of documentation. It's just a printed screen document. Communication is picking up the phone or in person, whatever, or a Zoom call, anything. But one of the most important things when parents feel the stress of a kid struggling, their child struggling, I often get, I'm sure you do, I think a lot of principals do, it's right to the top and we'll fix this. And the honest answer is we're always here to help, and I want to know and understand what's happening in your experience. But the person who can actually make all the change is the classroom teacher. Give the teacher the chance to listen and learn. Oftentimes it's I go to a teacher, I'm like, hey, did so-and-so reach out to you? I'm like, I haven't heard anything. And then the teacher's in the dark, and that can't be a fair way to support your child. So that's my big advice is pick up the phone. And yeah, don't email me. My God. Call. We got like 7 people at the high school that answer phones, and they're awesome at it, and they're amazing people, and they know where I am any point of the day. Please call the high school and just say, Steve said I should call and track him down. Yeah, email is utter amazing how we've relied on it this long.
I'd say let your kid lead the way a little bit.
Oh.
You know, when I think about my son, who's a freshman in college now, he was starting high school in the pandemic, and it was like going to be virtual. And I was like, look, St. Thomas is going to be in person. Why don't we go there? It's like right down the road. And he didn't want to do it because he was dead set he wanted to do ROTC. And I was like, oh, you might not really fit in that well with those kids. It's not really what you think and whatever. But that's been his success. That's who he is. That's what he wanted to do. And so we tried to talk him out of it. Like, I don't think you really know what these kids are like. And he came home the first day of school, and he's like, I think I'm the smartest kid in ROTC. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. But he was commander, by his senior year. So, like, let them lead the way and be there to support them along the way. Not always. You don't want to let them lead the way in the wrong direction. But,
Yeah, no, definitely good.
having a bunch of different kids myself, they're all unique. You guys know that. And so you can't drive them in the direction that you want them to go all the time. They've got to.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to grow in high school.
I
be
tried to
their own-
convince
their
my
own person.
oldest not to go to college in year 1. I was anything, like PG years, go travel, go take photos. I was like, do you see yourself in a classroom? He's like, I see myself in a classroom next September in a college. I was like, okay. And it was the right call for him. He really was the right space, and he's out now and working in a career. But yeah, I agree. I think it's really interesting to watch the transition from your 8th graders to our seniors is amazing. Today I had a meeting with the 4 class presidents, and my senior class president and my freshman class president. It's such a beautiful thing to see what happens in 4 years for these kiddos and the growth in their mindsets. And yeah.
Thank you both so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to stop the recording now, or hopefully kept recording. Hold on.
Wait, get this part in now.